The strange thing about betrayal is that it rarely announces itself. It arrives wearing a familiar face, carrying a smile you've trusted for years. By the time you recognize it, the table has already been cleared. Welcome back to Family Reckoning, where family secrets always leave a mark. I have spent 23 years as a pastry chef. Baking teaches patience in ways people rarely understand. Bread rises on its own schedule. Sugar burns if you rush it. A cracked cake can still taste wonderful if you know how to repair it before anyone notices. Families are much the same. You cannot force warmth where resentment quietly lives. You cannot frost over old wounds forever. My name is Claire Donovan, and until last autumn, I believed my mother simply had impossible standards. It took my 17-year-old daughter to show me the difference between high expectations and conditional love. My daughter Lily had inherited everything good from the women before us except our habit of staying silent. She loved cooking almost as much as I did. Every Saturday we experimented with recipes before sunrise. She kept a notebook filled with sauces, homemade breads, and desserts she dreamed of serving in her own cafe one day. When my mother announced she wanted her 72nd birthday celebration at our family home, Lily practically glowed. Mom insisted it should feel warm and homemade. She asked Lily personally to prepare dinner for 23 relatives. I remember the excitement in my daughter's eyes more clearly than any birthday candle. For 2 weeks she planned the menu. She tested marinades. She practiced soufflés. She even calculated oven timing down to the minute, writing schedules across sticky notes that covered our refrigerator. Watching her organize the kitchen reminded me of reading a perfect recipe, every ingredient measured, every step thoughtful. I warned her it was too much work. Mom laughed and said Lily wanted the experience. She's becoming a young woman, she told me. This will make everyone proud. I wanted to believe her. Looking back, the warning signs were there. Whenever relatives called, Mom mentioned that important guests might attend. She kept asking how elegant the dining room looked. She cared more about table settings than food. Then she casually asked whether Lily owned anything more sophisticated than her favorite apron. My younger sister Vanessa assured me everything was fine. Mom was simply nervous because one of her wealthy bridge club friends and their family would be attending. They're very successful, Vanessa said. Mom just wants everything perfect. The week before the party became a marathon. Lily woke before dawn every morning. She baked artisan bread, prepared handmade pasta, slow-cooked sauces for hours, labeled containers with painter's tape. She even polished serving platters she'd borrowed from neighbors because ours didn't all match. Every evening she asked me one question. Do you think Grandma will be proud? I always answered yes. I truly believed it. The morning of the birthday arrived. By 8 o'clock our kitchen smelled like rosemary, roasted garlic, cinnamon, butter, and fresh bread. Lily wore the blue apron I'd embroidered with her initials years earlier. Her hands moved confidently across cutting boards while I prepared desserts beside her. By 3 in the afternoon every dish was nearly finished. The turkey rested, vegetables waited for roasting, desserts chilled in the refrigerator. The dining room sparkled. Then my phone buzzed. A group message from Mom. Change of plans. Everyone's meeting at Bellamy House Restaurant instead. Easier for the guests. Adults only. Thanks for understanding. That was all. No apology. No explanation. No mention of 12 hours of work. I read it twice. Lily looked at my face before she looked at my phone. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew. She quietly untied her apron, folded it carefully, placed it beside the stove. Then she stood in front of the refrigerator for several seconds, staring at rows of food she'd spent weeks planning. She didn't cry. She simply whispered, "Should I start freezing everything? I've seen wedding cakes collapse. I've watched restaurants close. None of those moments hurt as much as hearing that question." I called Mom. She didn't answer. Vanessa finally picked up. She said the restaurant had been chosen because some guests preferred a higher class environment. She insisted Lily shouldn't take it personally. There just isn't room for everyone. There were 23 seats, exactly the number originally invited. Something wasn't adding up. Years in professional kitchens teach you to investigate mistakes before blaming ingredients. So I started asking questions. One of my cousins accidentally revealed the restaurant reservation had been made nearly 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks, while Lily was still shopping for ingredients. While Mom kept encouraging her. while we spent hundreds of dollars preparing food nobody intended to eat. Another cousin quietly confessed that the wealthy Harrison family, the people from Mom's Bridge Club, had agreed to attend only if the celebration looked more exclusive. Apparently, teenagers and homemade dinners didn't match the image. Instead, the Harrisons wanted their granddaughter, Madison, seated beside my grandmother because she hoped to impress everyone before applying to an elite university. Status, appearances, photographs, everything suddenly fit together, not because Lily had done anything wrong, because someone else's family looked wealthier. That evening I drove to the restaurant alone. I didn't intend to argue. Arguments are like overmixed cake batter. The harder you beat them, the tougher everything becomes. I simply wanted the truth. Mom met me outside, without guests watching, without birthday music, without applause. For the first time in years, she looked tired rather than confident. She admitted everything. The Harrisons donated large sums to local charities. They hosted prestigious events. She wanted their approval. She feared they'd judge our family if dinner happened in my modest house. She worried Lily looked too ordinary. She even admitted the homemade meal suddenly seemed embarrassing compared to a luxury restaurant. Then she said something I still remember word for word. I've spent my whole life trying to be accepted by people who always had more than us. It wasn't cruelty speaking. It was insecurity wearing expensive jewelry. For the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because insecurity explains choices. It doesn't erase consequences. I left without raising my voice, without insulting her, without threatening anything. Instead, I made one phone call. The following morning, our local community shelter received enough homemade food to serve over 80 people. A friend from church organized volunteers. Another neighbor contacted the local newspaper because they wanted to highlight young volunteers making a difference. Lily almost refused. She thought the food wasn't special anymore. I told her good meals don't become worthless because the wrong people refuse them. At the shelter, families thanked her personally. Children asked for second helpings. An elderly veteran insisted her bread reminded him of his late wife. One little girl hugged Lily after tasting her apple pie. No applause at expensive restaurants has ever sounded as sincere as those quiet thank yous. The newspaper published a story 2 days later. Not about family drama. Not about betrayal, simply about a 17-year-old aspiring chef who donated a banquet after an unexpected cancellation. The article spread surprisingly quickly. People shared it across town. Several restaurant owners contacted Lily with internship offers. One of them belonged to Daniel Mercer. He owned 3 successful restaurants across the state. Unlike many wealthy people I'd met, he listened more than he spoke. After tasting Lily's cooking, he offered her a paid summer apprenticeship. He later admitted he'd first heard about her through the newspaper article. Meanwhile, another story quietly reached relatives. Someone attending Mom's birthday mentioned how disappointed they were that Lily wasn't there. Questions spread. Eventually, the truth followed. Not because I exposed it, because facts have their own timetable. They're like bread dough. Given enough time, they always rise. Several relatives called me privately. Most hadn't known Lily had prepared the entire meal. Some apologized. Others admitted they'd assumed she'd simply chosen not to come. Mom's Bridge Club wasn't nearly as impressed by the Harrisons as she'd hoped. Apparently, wealthy people spend very little time remembering who arranged seating charts, but families remember who gets left out. Months later, Mom asked if we could meet for coffee. She apologized, not dramatically. Not perfectly. She admitted she'd confused admiration with acceptance. She'd spent decades chasing people whose approval disappeared as quickly as dessert plates after dinner. Some recipes require years before they're ready again. Our relationship became polite, careful, respectful, never quite the same. Christmas was smaller after that. Birthdays became simpler. Nobody pretended the past hadn't happened. And strangely enough, honesty made future gatherings more peaceful. One evening, nearly a year later, Lily and I stayed late at the bakery decorating wedding cakes. She suddenly asked something that broke my heart all over again. "Do you think Grandma didn't choose me because I wasn't good enough?" I set down my piping bag. Professional bakers know that when icing cracks, adding more pressure only makes it worse. Gentleness repairs what force cannot. I told her something I'd learned much too late. People who measure worth by appearances eventually mismeasure everyone, including themselves. You weren't replaced because someone cooked better. You were replaced because someone cared more about being admired than about loving honestly. She nodded, not because the pain disappeared, because she finally understood it belonged to someone else. Today Lily is studying culinary arts while working weekends at Daniel Mercer's flagship restaurant. She still keeps that blue apron. She refuses to wash it out completely. She says it reminds her where she truly started, not at an expensive restaurant, not at a birthday party, but in a quiet kitchen where effort mattered, even when people failed to appreciate it. And maybe that's the lesson. The people who overlook your kindness aren't always proving your value. Sometimes they're revealing their own priorities. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever quietly reclaimed your dignity without seeking revenge? And if you believe kindness deserves to be remembered, please like this video, subscribe to Family Reckoning, and join us for more stories where family secrets always leave a mark.